Yo, what's up, guys? Episode 42 TGW. We are here with Brian and special guest Wendell from Tek Syndicate. What's up, guys? And first off, really quick before we say anything, you guys may have noticed we didn't have the intro there. We actually decided to start cutting back the intro. We know you guys are probably going to be a little bit upset about that. But really it just comes down to potential things with copyright. Even though it's remixed and things like that, it has elements of an original song. So we're gonna redo it, and we're gonna get copyright stuff that we have licenses to use because we have, like, through Epidemic Sound and things like that, through our networks, we're allowed to use certain music. So we're gonna redo an intro. It's gonna be good again, but we're not gonna have the same one as before. So that's why you guys didn't see it today. So it's no more. And on the back episodes, we're gonna go back and trim it out. Brian already started doing that, right?
Yeah, it's just something weird's going on with our channel lately. I don't know if it's YouTube that's doing it or if someone's reporting us, but yeah, we're getting copyright. Especially me, I'm getting like they're claims. They're not actually strikes, and I'm lucky that they're not strikes. So on just little things that I've used, like even if it's 10, 20 seconds, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've got no idea with this fair use stuff, but like, I was just like, all right, well, we got to be careful. So, yeah. That's it. So anyway,
Wendell dropped out there for a moment. Looks like.
We got special guest Wendell here today. So he is going to
it's trying to get the call back. It looked like it dropped it. We were fine before the show started. It looks like it's trying to connect now.
Okay. Well, yeah, we've got Wendell on, and it's going to be awesome today because we're going to talk a lot about all the hardware side of things that a lot of people want to ask about and shoot the stuff about. So yeah, if you guys want to ask Wendell some questions, then go ahead.
Wendell, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I think I left for a second.
Oh yeah, we don't have video yet right now for you.
It died.
Yeah, dude. Like Tech City's plastered over my head as well.
Yeah, I know. It's because the video things have resized because Wendell doesn't have video. As soon as his video comes back, it'll size again normal, and then it should be okay. So we're just waiting for. There we go. See, now Wendell's coming back up, and we're good. There we go. Technical difficulties over.
Oops.
Huzzah. Okay. Anyway, so all right. Now that intro stuff's out of the way, Wendell, I just want to say thanks for coming on the show, man. Been watching like Tek Syndicate like forever. So
no problem. It's all good.
No, it's a big deal to me, man. It's like a kid growing up getting to play baseball at Mickey Mantle.
I don't know about that. Yeah,
no, it is like that.
We're all just bozos on the internet. I mean,
yeah. Well, it means a lot to us. Trust me, to have you on the show, and I know it means a lot to our viewers too to have you here.
Oh, I'm glad to be here.
All right, awesome. So usually we let people like go ahead and plug their stuff. You want to go tell people what you do in case they've been living under a rock and don't know who you are?
I'm a nerd. You can find videos for Tek Syndicate. The best thing that you should do if you want to learn more about the stuff that I do is just go to teksyndicate.com, TEKSYNDICATE.com. There's a forum there, a bunch of users. We do stuff with Linux. We do videos on how to do things. We do videos. We do a sort of weekly tech news thing. It's not really anything too crazy. Just nerdery, general nerdery.
Yeah, and I'm pretty active on their forums as well. So if you guys want to ever interact with me, I'm usually over there as well posting. So that's usually where you find me. If I'm not on Twitter, I'm usually over there posting around and stuff too. But Brian, you got any personal news, tech pickups before we get into anything?
Quite a lot, eh? Like in the last week, I picked up a lot of things. You guys probably know on Twitter, I got hosed really bad, like with that motherboard. You know, there was some guy.
One, right?
You know, the biggest thing, the biggest problem with that is like, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm like, yes, you did. You showed a picture of like a great looking motherboard, like a perfectly fine motherboard. And then you sent me something where the PCB was popped out so bad because he's overclocked. Like both the sides of the memory VRMs were toast. And then I pulled off the heatsink. That was toast as well. Like this whole board was toast. And I'm like, damn, I got hosed so bad. I still got to go to the police and report it. Like, because in Japan, it's like you don't have PayPal. I've actually got to go down to the police and say, this is the guy's number, his address. This is the deal that he pretty much, was fraudulent on. And then after that, though, there was some good news. I got a X79 UD7, it's a really good overclockable motherboard. It's got actually two 8-pin CPU connectors on it. It's that hardcore. And I got that for like $160. And then I got the what is it? The E5 2670 V3, the Haswell. I actually ordered an engineering sample and they sent me over a retail sample. So that was really good. I picked that up for like $300. And then
You lucked out on that one.
yeah, so that was pretty good. And then I ordered 32 gigabytes of DDR4 memory for it yesterday. So yeah, so going to get a few builds going in the next week. And that's about it for me. Presently.
Did you say there was an X79 motherboard with a V3 processor?
Oh, no, sorry, no. I ordered another one. I ordered that CPU for my X99 board, yeah. So I actually, sorry, and I got a 3930K for the X79.
Okay.
So I got that for 100. That was an engineering sample. I got that for 170. So got some pretty good deals. Yeah.
Nice.
So what about you guys?
Wendell, do you have any tech pickups you want to share? Like we tell our tech pickups each week if we got anything new or any projects we're working on. You got anything exciting you can share that you're working on? Maybe that you're allowed to talk about. Personal projects.
I'm always working on.
I know. I've seen your office tour. I've seen the amount of projects you've got going on. So we could take up the whole next hour probably in your projects.
Yeah, it's sort of nuts. I did I think we're going to be talking a little bit more about Xeons and how viable older hardware is lately.
That's perfect.
A little bit later. We just did a video on upgrading a 2009 Mac Pro with new Xeon CPUs. That's 1366, and the cost was basically nothing. I lucked out and was able to get some 2009 Mac Pros at scratching it surplus, basically that would not post and had problems, and it sort of took them. And it's like, oh, there's no RAM, and they take CPUs. I put some X5650s in them, and so now the machine from 2009 with more recent CPUs than were available in 2009 and 64 gigabytes of RAM, which is not exactly available in 2009. Now with all those upgrades, it's within spitting distance of a modern Mac Pro, and also picked up some i5 2400s. And those actually make perfectly capable gaming machines with like a 950, 960. That works really well. And those were like $50 each. No RAM or anything, just CPU, motherboard, power supply, micro, either small form factor or a micro ATX case.
Yeah, that's the X5650s. Yeah, there's also the X5670s. Yeah, they got like an extra 500 megahertz on each of the on the cores. They're really good CPUs for workstations, aren't they?
Yeah, and 5690. The 5690 I think is one of the top end. And that one's is that one 3.4 or is that the turbo speed? There's one of them that's like 3.4 gigahertz.
No, I think that is the 90. Yeah, and that usually commands a big premium though. That's the problem. So it's kind of not getting your value there. The Xeons are just incredible. I mean, I've been playing around with the E5640, and for a gaming machine, that is hands down the best value you're going to get out of a CPU. Like it overclocks extremely well. Like every proc I'm getting is going to 4 gigahertz. And, you couple that, you can get ECC memory on there or whatnot. The problem is you just got to get the X58 board, which they can be quite expensive sometimes. But if you manage to pick up an X58 motherboard, then damn, you can get one of those CPUs in there and you're going to have a lot of fun. So, sorry.
Now I'm feeling so left out. I've got my X99 because I still haven't jumped the gun on those 2670s. So I'm still sitting over here on my 5820K, taking an hour and a half to render out 4K videos.
Well, it's funny because I was going to make a video saying it's not the upgrader's itch. Like there's this thing out there saying that people they want to upgrade, and for me it's like I'm having so much fun downgrading. Like I sold off my X99 platform, and I got this in the background, which is Sandy Bridge, and I'm just having so much fun with it. Like, and I'm gonna be selling my Skylake build too, and then swapping that for a 3930K. Because there's just no real value in the new Intel architectures. Like, I'm sorry to say, but there's not much value there. Like Skylake and Haswell's pretty good, but Skylake just, I don't know. Like for 4 or 5 years, it's really not much of a difference between Sandy Bridge and Haswell.
It's all around
Skylake.
Peripheral interface speed with Skylake.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
DMI 3.0 on Skylake is a huge improvement over Haswell. But in terms of like IPC and CPU, you're totally right. Didn't Intel just announce today that they're discontinuing the whole TikTok thing?
I heard something about that. Yeah, someone I think it was Drake had mentioned something about it in the comments.
Yeah, so they're disconnecting. But we knew that for a little while already, right? They started along with the Haswell refresh, and then they did the Broadwell delay, and so the kind of it was unofficially sort of like just halted, based, pretty much
Just
then.
gonna do
So
some minor revisions, and it's like, look, it's new.
yeah,
It's like, but it's
yeah,
not. Really, I don't understand. Why is this? You know, if you still have an X79 system, there hasn't really been a great reason to upgrade. Really, I mean, I've been playing around with an ASRock E3 V5 WS with the Intel NVMe storage. That's a C232 chipset as opposed to the
yeah,
Z170, and for like workstation tasks. And so like a workstation task is like I'm working with a Git repository, or I'm working with like a Vagrant VM or something like that, and I need to do a compile, or I need to do something else like that. There is a huge difference in how snappy the system feels between like Haswell with a desktop chipset, like a
yeah.
desktop Haswell, and this E3 V5 WS with a Xeon 1230 V5. And I think it's down to the peripheral interface speed and there being less latency. I don't know that the DDR4 really has that much to do with it, but in working
Yeah.
with lots of teeny tiny files, even with just the Intel SSD and NVMe, it feels a lot different. But like for gaming and everyday productivity tasks, there's not really much of a difference.
What's the 1230? What's the clock speed on that?
I don't actually know off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I think it's 3.4.
Oh, okay, so that's pretty snappy. That's pretty quick. But yeah, because I've noticed the snappiness, sort of, if that's a term you can use, the snappiness of the X99, the 5820K. I noticed that was a little bit slower than, as opposed to the this. I mean, sorry, that was a lot faster on X99 than it was on the Sandy Bridges that I got back here. But when it comes to actually me jumping into Premiere Pro and doing all my 4K editing, this thing's just smooth. Like, it's like, wow, this is what I was missing out on when I was on my X99 system, because it just didn't have the amount of raw power that these two Xeons have. So I was really glad I upgraded to that, or down upgraded, if you call it that.
Cross scripts.
So my question is, right now, my thought process is, should I go with an old dual Xeon like Brian, or wait for the Intel Deca cores and spend an obscene amount of money on that?
So I think if you go for the E5 Xeons, I think the X56 series is probably a little too old. But if you get my personal opinion on it is that if you get the E5, either the original E5 or the E5 V2, that those are really in the sweet spot of used price versus performance. If you can find the platform to support it, a server, if you can find like an old Dell or HP server, and you don't mind that form factor and you don't mind that it's loud, you're probably going to pay considerably less for that than a desktop with a desktop board. But if you can get a desktop board, because that'll be a little bit easier to work with, because all the parts in a server are going to be basically proprietary, designed for that rack mount case.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm trying to justify doing like a dedicated dual Xeon, literally just for video editing and rendering, and then keep my X99 for gaming and whatever else stuff, so I can still have a pretty powerhouse system.
Well,
That's
I'm gonna
probably the direction I want to go.
test out this 12 core, man. If it works out, like if it can get a pretty high score in Cinebench, because I mean, honestly, I think Cinebench is very relevant to Premiere Pro. Like, I think they're correlated in that if it gets a pretty good Cinebench score, it's going to work really well in the video editing render space. So I think you should just, if this 12 core works out, then maybe just get that, because it's just a $300 buy, and then you just pop it in. And then you can sell your old 5820K, free upgrade.
I'm still waiting, and I'm waiting for the new X99 chips to launch, and I want to see what those do. I want to see how those are.
I think too that the Premiere and the Adobe products, you gain a lot from using a graphics card that can accelerate floating point, which the Titan Black can do it, but other than that, you need a professional grade workstation card. And that plus dual Xeon is really where you want to be for a video editing computer. There's really not a lot of other options. What I'd really like to do is to slam a K5000 in a Skylake system and put that head to head against like an X99 and just see what happens.
Well, let me ask you: would you change that at all for Vegas? Because I'm actually a Sony Vegas peasant.
I don't know. I don't know how. I
I'm a
don't know how
Sony
it's
Vegas
difficult.
peasant, and I render on CPU only because I use SLI, and it doesn't like SLI in the preview window.
I well, I quit Vegas as soon as I
You tried
realized
it
that
for like 2 weeks. You can really even say quit.
it,
You basically just tried it out. You just
it was
tested the waters.
it was really good. It was really good until I got into that 4K editing space, and I'm just like I'm literally trying to change the wording on a text, and I'm just watching it. It's painful. I'm like watching one character just pop up at a time. I'm like, oh no. So I just realized Vegas wasn't going to be for me when that happened. So
I think it's also true that Adobe has done a really awful job really GPU accelerating things the way that they need to. I think that it feels like we're in a position where the software tools are mostly using the GPU for preview acceleration, and you still need a lot of CPU horsepower for the actual rendering.
yeah, that's what I found. Like it's just like RAM and CPU. Like now that I've got 64 gigabytes of RAM and I've got these two bad boys here, it's just like it's really helping a lot. So I mean, at the end of the day, it's I'm not sure what they're doing when it comes to optimizing, but I've got no complaints now, so it's working really well. Like my whole workflow is really good. So I was wondering too. A lot of viewers would be. Oh, sorry. Did you want to?
No, I was gonna say I don't know. I really don't know as much about this as I should. I used to do a lot more work actually in the visual effects industry, and at that time was around the i7-920 time when I was really into it. And you could get an 8800 GTX and mod it. An 8800 GTX with like 1.5 gigs of RAM was like a special edition version of the card, but you could mod it. And when you modded it, it made a huge difference in the visual effects programs because then it was showing up as a quadro, and it was those days are basically over. I did it with a 690, I think 690. That made a huge difference, but I don't know what the state of the art is currently.
Okay. 'Cause, yeah, I think now they're just laser cutting things off the.
All right, I'm gonna have to actually put the brakes on this discussion. We're gonna have to start to transition to the first topic because we do have little time limitations. So.
It's all right. Well,
Yeah.
I just wanted quickly to before stream, we're actually talking about something that was really interesting before as well, and that was
What's
the
that?
engineering samples. Like Wendell had some real good knowledge on that, and I asked him about the Xeons and some of the post Westmere Xeons when they locked the multipliers on the Xeons. There were some rumors of engineering samples being overclockable. And now Wendell had some insight on that. Like we're talking Sandy Bridge Xeons and even post that. So, yeah.
Well,
So
the experience that I had with that was that they did that. They were unlocked so that motherboard manufacturers would be able to validate all the different clock configurations for all the different parts with basically one CPU, so they could step through it and get through all of the software. But also, my experience with some engineering samples is I was on a project where we got to work with a Supermicro motherboard, and the Supermicro motherboard was actually an Intel project, and Intel was doing some experiments with the very first UEFI. Like it's like we got to get this UEFI thing down pat. So it's first generation Nihilum. Nihilum's not even really out yet, getting close. And the CPUs have no power management. If you turn on power management, the system will hang, and that's regardless of whether or not you use it on the Supermicro motherboard with the Intel UEFI BIOS, or if you take the CPUs out and try to use them on another motherboard. The stepping is so early that there are some hardware bugs in the CPU, and so that's unfortunately what you run into sometimes with engineering samples. Is that sometimes you get those very early steppings, and there are bugs in silicon microcode can't overcome.
Yeah, because I noticed I did see a screenshot of one of the people who had one, and it's like you just see the multiplier. It's only locked at 40. There's no there's no Intel like speed step technology or anything. It's just 40. I'm like, whoa, this guy's got it. So he's not controlling the CPU. The CPU is controlling him by the sounds of it.
Yeah, and it's constantly using 200 watts of electricity.
Yeah.
What you do.
Yeah. So, anyway, so yeah, if you guys have some maybe questions, you can get them ready for the end of the show. But let's move on. Do you want to move on to this
Yeah, let's
first
go on.
topic here?
Yeah, let's-
Microsoft.
Yeah,
Sorry, Derek.
let's do it. Let's take the first topic. Microsoft wanted to know if people wanted to buy, if people would be willing to trade in their digital games for store credit. Now, this is from a NeoGAF user. It's not take it with a grain of salt, but it looks like they wanted to get some feedback from users, see if they would be willing to trade in their digital titles in exchange for credit, so that they can get new games, kind of like you would at GameStop with digital games. So my thought was, if this was to come to Steam, if people would be open to it, I thought it'd be a pretty good topic to bring for discussion. I mean, would either of you be willing to trade in your old digital games to trade for this? I mean, I know I have a library of like an obscene amount of Steam games that I'm never going to play again, so I think I would maybe consider some of them.
Not for 10%. I mean, 10%'s a joke.
It depends it depends really what it is, what it comes down to.
I mean, you want to take care of people, 25% would be really good. I think they could get a lot of business off that as well, in that they could sell a lot of new release titles by trading in, allowing people to trade in old titles for 25%. I just think 10% is like, well, what's the point, right? I've got a lot of, like GTA 5, for example. I've finished that. I'm not going to trade that in for $5, because that's a game that I really enjoyed. Like,
not games like that, but there are games that I've gotten on sales, or games that just come with humble bundles and things that I get doubles of, things like that I would trade in, because I've doubles of extra things just laying around in my library that I just have nothing to do with.
I feel like $5 is just playing with the margin. Like $5 is what they would give any discounter or any coupon or any, like, you can get $5 off of any game that's out if you just shop around a little bit. I mean, even we've always got the coupon thing on our site, and I don't think I've ever paid full price for a game, even on launch day, ever, just because it's like you could dig around, and so the $5 thing, it just doesn't. I think they're betting that you will sell it and then want to play it again later, and then you'll pay more later. So
the only time I ever pay full value is like on like some smaller indie titles on like GOG, like when Superhot came out, I bought it for full value. But there's like other things, like big titles, I usually go around to either CD keys or G2A, or try to find the best price that I can and just get something, just so I can get the game to have it.
yeah, I think there's also something that's lost here. So when I can think of like the LucasArts games, and so when I got some of the old LucasArts games that were really amazing, Day of the Tentacle, Full Throttle, the King's, to a lesser extent, the Sierra, like King's Quest games, although those were really good.
Yeah, those were really good.
The Dig, and the, like when I got one of those games, it was a really big deal. I mean, it was not, I was not ordering 20 games a week. It was like I was lucky to get one game every other month or something like that. And I got the talkie version of some of those, and I held on to most of them. So I still have my talkie version of Day of the Tentacle, and I still have my talkie version of Full Throttle. It's just so much fun. There's something about being able to hang on to that.
Did you see the Day of the Tentacle just got remastered?
No, I did not.
It did, yeah. I saw our buddy Brian Batsy Tech and Angry Centaur Game, and they were talking about it on Twitter. He's like, "Oh my god, I love Day of the Tentacle." And I didn't even know what it was, but now you bring it up, it's like whenever I hear about these things that I've never heard before, it's all of a sudden I start hearing about it from everywhere. It's like, what?
Well, I had
Full Throttle, that stands out.
I sold them, and it wasn't. I wish that I had not sold them, but I managed to hang on to those two, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
Full Throttle, that's got that. I just remember I played that when I was a kid. It's got that part where he jumps up to the car and he puts his mouth on the hose, and then he puts he's stealing gas from the car.
Yeah.
That game was a classic. Yeah. Oh man.
I looked when I heard about that Day of the Tentacle. I looked at it, the gameplay, the art style looked really interesting, and the updated graphics looked really nice. It looks like something I could definitely sit down and play.
It's actually a part 2 of a much more difficult version. Adventure game that was like originally designed like CGI graphics, and I think maybe the Commodore or something, called Maniac Mansion. And Maniac Mansion was re-released on the NES. The NES is where I first played Maniac Mansion, and they toned down some of the off-color humor for the NES. And Day of the Tentacle, the version that I have, comes with Maniac Mansion, but it doesn't say on the box or anything that it comes with Maniac Mansion. At one point in the game, there's a computer in a room, and it's not part of a plot point or anything, but if you use computer in that room, then you can play Maniac Mansion, the original DOS CGA version, inside of inside of Day of the Tentacle, which is sort of funny.
That's pretty cool. So, so all right. So I guess basically we can move on from this, but it basically sounds like you guys would definitely want to hold on to your older games for.
Yeah, I ain't selling
posterity.
for $1-2. They can
Well,
keep their
for
offer.
classic games like that, I can definitely agree with the value, but I would consider it if it became available for some titles that I have doubles on or things that came in humble bundles that I know I'm never going to touch. But
Here,
for old classics like that, I wouldn't get rid of them.
You gotta
here's
keep
what-
our games.
Well, here's the more horrifying thing for this. Okay, so the lawyers have looked at this whole like
Uh,
We just lost audio.
oh, we just lost audio. Damn.
We lost audio from you, Wendell.
Yeah, Wendell, we lost audio.
I don't think he can hear us either.
We lost audio.
He dropped the call completely.
Oh yeah, he must have cut out. So,
Cut it out
damn.
again. Let's
That's
reconnect
all
him.
right. So we can quickly.
Yeah, we could start. We could start
Oculus.
transitioning. We could start transitioning into the next topic because he's coming back in. I'm sure he's
Oh,
already
yeah.
reconnected.
Right.
Are you there? Sorry,
Yeah, we're here.
I'm back. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Moving right along.
Moving right along. Yeah, we started transitioning to the next topic. We got the Oculus App Store is actually going to require pre-approvals and comfort ratings for games. So kind of like how you would see a game rated E for everyone. It'll have ratings for comfort based on maybe like how intense the VR experience. So if it was going to be like some really intense like roller coasters up and down where you might get sick, they would have to let you know this ahead of time. I think that's a pretty good idea. It's good that they're implementing that.
Well, I say I like this. This won't make you sick. I mean, if they've got that rating, then I can kind of look at that and really carefully examine it and say, okay, this is not going to be the game for me. But I think, yeah, because the biggest problem I have with VR headsets that I've tried on so far is just that vertigo, and I couldn't shake it, man. I tried to even sit down and use the VR headsets for a while, and I just couldn't shake that vertigo feeling. So. Yeah, so this will be actually good that they've got the ratings there. Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing that was on here that was kind of interesting was the pre-approval. That's kind of like Apple's App Store. So it got me thinking: are they going to have certain titles that are going to be first party only to the Oculus Rift that they'll only have on the Oculus Store?
Yeah, probably.
That's what it seems like, because that was actually the other thing in this article that stood out a little bit more to me than the rating system, because it sounds like they will have some things, but it's supposed to work with Steam as well. I mean, some titles that support Oculus Rift, like Vanishing of Ethan Carter, those should all be plug and play with Oculus Rift. I wouldn't imagine you'd have to buy them through their store for it to work.
I mean, yeah, imagine that's what's going to happen, right? They're going to have developers developing apps for their Oculus Rift, but they need to pre-approve them, of course. You can't have.
But do you think they would go as far as to make it so that the third-party games would need to be run through their own interface, like their own Steam or Uplay type store application?
I would say yes. I would
think?
say yes. Just like any other, just like your PlayStation 4 games boot up through, the PlayStation 4 OS kind of thing. So of course they're going to do something like that and have it proprietary. But other than that, I don't know what exactly they're going to do, right? Just based off a news article.
Yeah.
So.
You have a take on that, Wendell? How do you think that would go, possibly?
It's really hard to tell. I think I'm cautiously optimistic about VR, but I'm really worried that the first round of apps, the first generation of apps, is going to make like everybody motion sick, or it's just there's going to be something horribly wrong. And I know they've been incubating it for a long time, but I'm cautiously optimistic about it, but I'm going to sort of reserve judgment until actually I've played with it and I see the dynamics and I see what they're doing. Because they have made some announcements that there are some exclusive titles, but it's really going to be interesting to see what the definition of exclusive there is. It's like exclusive as in recommended hardware, or is it exclusive as in no, we're going to actively prevent you from using another VR headset?
That's the other thing. Like if you go out and buy the Vive or whatever, and you want to play one of their first party games, will you be able to? I definitely see it going in that direction. It's just, I feel like it's going to be another Xbox versus PlayStation thing all over again but there's so many VR headsets that it's going to be insane, which is probably why the headset I'm going to get is be the Open VR.
It seems as though almost all of the marketing for VR on Steam is around the Vive, from what I can tell.
Yeah, the Vive and OpenVR seem to be the most exciting ones right now to me. But the Vive is probably going to be the one that's coming out the soonest anyway. That's viable. I had ordered the Oculus, but I actually canceled my pre-order. So not getting one. At least not right away.
I haven't pre-ordered either one. I'm just sort of, it's like, let's see what happens.
Yeah, well, I wanted to be like one of those people that I want to be there day one and have it and like tell people what I think day one. But then I didn't like make it for the first batch of deliveries, and I was just like, I really just don't want to wait for this and then have $650 randomly pulled out of my bank account. Just like, oh, here comes this Oculus now. So that's why I decided to cancel it. But anyway, next topic we have up actually is claiming that Valve's Steam hardware survey claims that Linux's gamers are declining, but it's being disputed actually over on the Gaming on Linux forum. So there was a thread over there where he actually estimated it's like 1.6 to 2 million, whereas Valve's Steam hardware is saying it's heavily declining.
I would say there's truth to this due to the fact that Windows 10 you can get it for free. I've got a lot of friends in Australia telling me how they've got their hacked copies of Windows upgraded to Windows 10 Pro for free. I'm like, wow. So I'm sure there's a lot of people just getting on Windows 10 for free. And if, one of the big perks of using Linux was that it's free. So if you can get a Windows 10 for free, hey, just jump ship, you know what I mean? So I think that's probably what's going on. Maybe if you guys have some more insight on that. But
well, it seems like the problem is that they're only counting Steam users. That's the problem. Is they're only counting Steam users. So they're not accounting for people that are going to buy through other websites. So if you're going to buy through like GOG or any other website like that that's not Steam, then they're not going to have those numbers accounted for. So that's why their numbers aren't accurate for the entire space here, which is what they're trying to say here in this article. That the numbers aren't entirely accurate for the community as a whole.
Okay. Well, possibly, yeah.
I think it's probably also true that a significant percentage of the audience that is playing games on Linux is also playing games on Windows. And
probably,
the decline, quote unquote, may be that they're just spending more time gaming on Windows and less time gaming on Linux. But the fact that they're interested in gaming on Linux sort of, I think, shows that the market is there. The situation on Linux right now is not great with regard to video drivers, although it's better than it's ever been, in my opinion. And I think in the next 6 months to a year, things are really, really going to heat up with graphics on Linux.
With to the Vulkan point, and everything.
Yeah, Nvidia and AMD are both putting a ton of work into the kinds of technologies that they have available on Linux. And I think it's going to get to a point where game developers will actually have less overhead on Linux as a platform than they do with Windows. And I think that's really what's got Microsoft terrified. And I think the games for Windows Live and all this other kind of stuff that, when Gabe Newell went to see Windows 8, he lost his mind, and thus was born Steam on Linux.
Yeah, I've heard the story.
And so I think that what he saw is what we are only now seeing.
Yeah.
And so he sort of has seen this. And if anybody can spend $1 billion on the graphic subsystem of Linux and not bat an eye, it would be Valve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just seemed like it was a foreshadowing, and a lot of people laughed at me at first. I was kind of one of them when I saw it was like Steam. I was like, I am not going to use that. I'm not going to, like, none of the games are going to run on there. Blah 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 blah. But then as soon as this all started to come about, I was like, oh, now I see what's happening here, and it looks like Gabe is the smartest one in the room yet again. Surprise, surprise.
He's got good foresight. So.
Yeah, it seems like Gabe is on the ball there, and unfortunately, still no word on Half-Life 3 though. But Gabe is on the ball with SteamOS. I would like to know his foresight on a release date for Half-Life 3 or an episode 3 at the very least. That would be nice.
Well, the best thing we can do with Half-Life 3 is to get Valve to give the rights to somebody else, because Valve is scared to death of doing something that will piss customers off.
Yep.
They make more money on Steam than they will ever make on Half-Life 3, so it doesn't make financial sense for them to do Half-Life 3. But they could with somebody else.
Yeah, I've heard the justification. It makes complete sense, but it still doesn't make me feel good as a gamer. That's never going to make me feel good.
I mean, I'm just looking for, like the engine, really, to get the engine. I could run on a new engine, wouldn't it, if they did do it?
At the same rate, I would also be really scared if they turned it over to the wrong people and it came out wrong. And the only thing, it's kind of like Back to the Future. They said they won't let anyone remake that movie or reboot it, like Robert Zemeckis and those guys. They won't let anyone touch it. And that's the kind of way I feel about Half-Life is like, no, I only want it done if it's done by the right people, the original people that know what to do with it.
They're just gonna pass
Otherwise,
it off
it's going to be a total mess.
Half-Life free.
It's gonna be
free
the
to
new,
play.
It'll be the new Ghostbusters movie version of a video game, which is I don't want that.
Free to play, and then you get your cosmetic upgrades for $10. Just completely ruin their image.
Yeah.
Half-Life free.
All right, so you want to move on to the GTX graphics cards, the new cards, Brian? You want to take this one? I got the link for video cards that was on WCCF actually, but they were linking over to video cards, so this was the original source here.
Okay, so we got the rumors here of the it's an X80 Ti. So they've got the rumors here. It honestly doesn't look right. I mean, the 80, you know, the 1080 Ti having 5,120 shader cores on 16 nanometer. That just seems too much too soon. I don't think Nvidia honestly is going to release this this yet. You know,
Not to mention GDR5.
You know, the X80, that does look like that'll be the front runner. That'll be your top dog. And I mean, we've got those leaked performance figures, right? You've got, I think it was scoring a graphics score on 3D Firestrike of about 19,500. That's kind of making sense to me. That's what you're going to see on this release. I don't think you're going to get something like with 6,144 shader cores. I mean, that is a lot. And I don't think NVIDIA is going to release that just yet. Like, that's just my thinking. I think that some of these specs, I mean, even if they did hold fruit, I think it's too soon for April.
Well, I know the Firestrike scores were kind of new, but the Excel, the fake looking Excel spreadsheet from like last week, that thing still, I do not believe that that's real at all, because that doesn't look like anything that NVIDIA's ever posted, and I could make that in Google Docs in about 5 minutes.
Yeah,
and also saying GDDR5. I mean, we've heard them talking about DDR5X as opposed to using HBM. Do you really think they would actually put out DDR5 cards?
Oh, they are going.
I mean on the flagship. I'm sorry, I should say on the flagship.
I'm not sure. I think that is true though, because of the limits of HBM1, right? I mean, Nvidia's not going to, because these cards this time around, your flagship cards are designed for 4K. If they're not going to sell, right? A lot of people are going to be making the move to 4K if they're spending $1,000 on a graphics card. So I think this time around, we're looking at something that's going to be a little bit more powerful than a 980 Ti, but it's going to have more ROPs on there, more whatnot, more texture, just to handle the 4K transition better than the 980 Ti did. And 5X will handle 4K a lot better than 5 will, GDDR5.
Yeah, that's
so I think
my concern.
I think they're not concerned about that, because I think they've still got HBM2 up their sleeve for an easy, easy next gen card.
A Titan card down the road.
Yeah, because 16 nanometer is obviously going to do it for them, right? You're going to get a lot of power efficiency out of just dropping down to 16 nanometer. So that's just my thoughts there. So I mean, if you guys wanted to add more.
I'm cautiously optimistic, but it does seem like a lot. But we don't know what AMD's got up their sleeve either. This could also be reactionary based on what AMD's working on, because when the AMD leak happened, and everybody was like, there's no way that the Fury is going to be this many teraflops. And it totally was, but the driver is not able to leverage the raw computational power there the same way that we've seen on NVIDIA. So even though the 980 Ti is computationally inferior to the Fury still loses out a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think DX12, like if it's a proper optimized game, we can see that the Fury really gains a big benefit. And so, like, I think it was the Ashes of Singularity when I saw that. So it does. I mean, yeah, NVIDIA are kind of known to see what AMD is doing in advance and then sort of come out and beat them to the game. It seems
like they've done the last 3 generations. They're always just like literally half a step ahead.
They must have someone on the assembly line.
It's like, oh, you guys are going to do this much? Okay, well, we're going to do about a half inch more than that, and then we're just going to sit there until you decide to do something more, and then we're going to say TI.
They've got a leak on the assembly. They've got the biggest biggest snitch on the assembly line. Like on his lunch break, he's called. Yeah, they've got this many cores. It's happening. All right, we're going to launch the Titan straight up.
I remember an article from like 2 years ago or a video that was talking about that where they basically had said that Nvidia was basically on vacation, just sitting back watching and seeing what AMD would do, just waiting,
Yeah.
just waiting to see what would happen.
Well, you got to
Well,
admit, HBM is a winning technology. It's just that now everybody else wants to execute that technology on their own for their own stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, not just dedicated GPUs either, right? Like FPG, field programming, right? FPGA, and all those other
mean-
technology. ASICs, even ASICs, would they utilize HBM too? I'm not sure.
Yeah, you know,
They would.
Intel is doing this as well, even with DRAM, like the EDRAM parts, the mobile Skylake parts. You can't really get those in desktop, but that's where Intel is going as well, is cramming a bunch of different pieces of silicon on one assembly, sometimes connected by interposer, sometimes by connected by the nature of the mechanical assembly, because that's what's necessary. The interconnects are now actually a problem. Look at the quad channel configuration of X99, where you've got 4 slots on either side. The reason
Yeah.
that is the way that is because the speed of electricity through wire is a problem anymore. DDR4 is switching to a parallel or a serial-ish bus with lots of parallel lanes as opposed to DDR3, because it was a real engineering problem on DDR3. If you had a longer wire going to a particular data pin on DDR3,
Yep.
timings would be off. And so getting a
Good.
motherboard certified for some of those upper echelons of DDR3 memory speed, which is not going to happen. And so now with DDR4 is a little more tolerant of things like that, but you're still fighting a lot of engineering problems getting things into and out of RAM quickly enough to quench the CPU.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. There's a lot more that goes into a motherboard design than people think. Like, I think that's the thing to take out of that, right? Like, you know, even just getting the socket, even like actually soldering the socket onto the motherboard, there has to be done in an even way. Otherwise, you're gonna have an impedance mismatch and stuff, right?
Yes.
So it's just so. Sorry.
I can go you on better, which is
Yeah.
you know, assuming, you know, if you've got a 4.5 gigahertz chip, 4.5,
Yeah.
you know, 4 gigahertz, 4.5 gigahertz. We're speaking in approximates because I haven't done the math in a while. This is an old memory, but you know, if your CPU can multiply two 32-bit numbers in one clock tick, which is also not exactly a correct instruction or not a correct assumption,
Yeah.
your light can travel through a vacuum about 6 inches. In one clock tick of your CPU.
Wow. All right. Oh man. All right. Wendell's gonna send me overload here. My brain's gonna fry.
This
So.
is this is why we brought him in. There is no way we would have ever known that without Wendell here.
Well, think
Yeah.
about it. I mean, you get 4 billion clocks per second. 1/4 billionth. What is 1/4 billionth of the speed of light? And that is how fast light can travel in a vacuum in one clock tick of your CPU, which is not much.
Ugh,
It's on the order of about 6 inches, I think.
wow.
Wow, that's incredible. That's really like when you start breaking it down like that. It's fascinating, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Shit, us humans. That's why I guess we need AI to go further in technological advancements, right? We're reaching the limit here, I think.
Yeah, I think one of the articles you sent talked about 2.5 dimensional fabrication processes, and
Was that the how many cores blog post?
yes,
That was the one. Yeah, that was the one we trimmed out. That Brian said, "Why do we have this? It's
Well,
just a
it's
blog
just
post."
no.
And
It's
I was,
just,
I was,
yeah,
I was like,
but-
"It sounds really interesting," and he's like, "It's just a blog post. Why are you putting this in?" I was like, "All right, fine, I'll take it out." Like, but go ahead.
Well, it's because the ultimatum of the article was like, we don't know what's going to happen. That's all. So,
Well, I bet Wendell knows what's going to happen. So.
I can make a guess.
yeah.
All right, let's
So
do it.
so the deal with what that article was talking about, it was a blog post, and I don't think the author did a really great job really breaking it down. But what he was saying was this new fabrication and the advances that we've seen in CPUs mean that we're adding new instruction sets and new functionalities to CPUs. And so a CPU, if a CPU was like a city, you're building newer and newer and newer city blocks to do different specialized things, as opposed to making the generic part of the CPU faster, better, stronger. When computers got their start, the personal computer, the processor in it was a totally generic computation device. Couldn't even do multiplication, not really. And you could fake multiplication by doing lots of other kinds of operations. Couldn't do floating point operations either. Had to fake that until we got a math coprocessor. And so computers have always done very generic things, but now all of the performance gains come from very specialized things. And the thing that this guy missed is that what he's talking about is already happening in the mobile industry. So you read about these phones, and it's like this phone has quad core, or this phone has hex core. What's going on with that? And so if you come at that as if you are somebody familiar with how PCs are put together and you're looking at it, it's like, oh, it's 6 of the same core. No, no, no. It's a lot more like AMD's approach with like the uncore stuff, but it's even more specialized than that. So in those quad cores and the hex core chips that I'm thinking of, 2 cores are for performance. 1 core maybe is for graphics or peripherals, or 1 core for peripherals and one core for graphics. And then you have other cores that are designed to operate at very low power. And so when the phone is off or asleep or whatever and doing stuff with your email and background tasks, it's running the very slow, very power sippy cores. But then when the phone wakes up, those tasks are passed off from those power sippy cores, which are then turned off to save power, to the faster cores, which have a variable clock speed.
So it's already happened. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
not. It's like it's a quad core phone. It's like, well, it's not really a quad core phone. It's a phone with 4 different cores for doing different things.
You're gonna have to give me about 20 minutes to Google everything you just said.
No, I absorbed it all. It all came in. It's all right. I'm okay. So what do we got? What we should move on now to the next topic. What do we got here? Valve.
Oh no, the next one was the Nvidia Maxwell GPU, 24 gigabytes of RAM, like Quadro GPU. That they put out brand new 24 gigabytes of VRAM. The question is, why don't I have it in my PC?
Well, are you one of those people that are like, oh yeah, more gigabytes equals more performance?
Of course, that's why I need a Titan Black.
Anyway, so yeah, 24 gigabytes. This thing's overkill for, like, you wouldn't even want to think about even remotely putting this near a gaming computer, but it does actually,
Pixar rendering machine.
Yeah, that's it. So whatever your goals are, $5,000 though. Is that what it's saying? $5,000. We can move on to the next topic.
You don't want to. So you don't want to get one of these for your dual Xeon build. Would that not help you at all?
For $5,000, they can keep their card.
Well, I mean, you saved so much by buying Sandy Bridge, you can justify it.
No, I don't have $5,000 to waste on a Quadro. Like, my workflow is great at the moment. I've got no complaints, especially not.
All right, fine. All right, well.
Well, if you happen to live in Los Angeles, you could probably find the previous generation pretty cheap, because the VFX industry people that work out there are constantly upgrading to the latest thing. And these cards do not play well with one another if you try to run multiple cards in a system. Although this article actually pointed out, it was like, oh, you're going to be able to mix the 12 and the 24 gig card in one system. It's like, great, I guess, whatever.
Until your render crashes midway and you're like, oh god.
Yeah. So
is that why they sell those systems that you see pre-built with like 12 of them strapped together, because they know those ones will work together, and those are the only ones that'll work together?
Yeah. It's
pretty much those have been to work together in a crazy SLI configuration. Well, it's not even SLI, I'm sure, at that point.
Well, as long as they're matched, it's okay. But if they're not, and so you see a lot of people getting rid of the previous generation, whatever it was, for very cheap. So I have some friends out there, and they could get the K4000 or whatever came before this, I don't even know, for $1,500. There was somebody at Christmas that was saying that they got the Quadro equivalent of the 670 for like $300, and they were doing video with that, and that's actually still a perfectly viable card for even 4K video editing, just because it's doing the 32-bit floating point, and it works really well with Premiere and all that.
Wow. To get some of those old ones, that'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
So the next thing I had up, I know this one's going to excite you, Brian, because there's only a few games that excite you. Well, Doom is one of them.
Well, Doom 4, like, they've revealed the multiplayer, and it looks good. Like, it just looks like it's not only different, but it looks like it's fast-paced, it's smooth. And, I was playing Counter-Strike last night, actually, just a little bit. And I love Counter-Strike, but, there's still that place in my sort of gaming regiment for a faster-paced FPS. And this looks like it's going to fit that need. So yeah, I really like what I'm seeing so far with Doom 4. Not only does the storyline look good, not only does the graphics look good, but now the multiplayer they're focusing on the multiplayer as well, which is a huge element of any game. If I'm going to pay money for it, I want it to have a good multiplayer.
It's my first thought when I looked at it was like, man, this looks a lot like Halo, but then I remembered, wait, Halo just looks a lot like Doom. that was my first thought, and then I was like, oh wow, this is May 13th. That's really soon. I'm really excited for this. It looks awesome, and I hope I haven't played the alpha or beta. I haven't been invited to any of those, but I'm hoping it feels better than the new Unreal Tournament, because I've been having some issues with that. I'm not a big fan of the way that feels. I think they need to tone down the speed on it a little bit, and also the aiming seemed a little off for me on the new Unreal Tournament. But that's still like really early in pre-production. This is like almost ready to come out here, Doom. So.
Yep, I'm getting excited, man.
I'm really excited for it. I just hope they do right on the multiplayer. And I mean, it's Bethesda, so I mean, it could be Dishonored or it could be Fallout 4 at launch. You never know. I mean, I don't, and with multiplayer, there's so many things to worry about, all net code and all that stuff. I'm just hoping that they focused on the right areas. This isn't the team that worked on the new Wolfenstein, but if they can hit it out of the park the way that they did with that game on this for the single player and multiplayer, then I think that's going to be like game of the year for me. If they can hit that on all cylinders. Are you an old Doom fan at all, Wendell?
I am.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that I originally got Doom from downloading, I think, with a 14.4 modem from a BBS. That was a thing. And I think I played it with a Gravis gamepad. I don't think I played it with a mouse. I think the mouse stuff came later. I think it was all Gravis gamepad related.
Oh wow.
Yeah, the original Doom for DOS. It was pretty crazy.
I remember I had that on the old 3.5-inch floppies. I had a whole box of those things. I was like, Wolfenstein 3D, Doom. I had all of them. And they were all pirated. But my dad got them. We had like an old 486 or a 386. I can't even remember which one it was at the time when that came out. But it was just he used to get them all from my uncle, because he just had all the games that he would actually buy, because he was at the time it was like, I didn't think about it, but think back then, like in the early 90s, he had like triple CRT monitors and a full workstation, because he used to work on the early computer the motherboards for slot machines. That's what he used to do. I can't remember which company it was for, but that's what he used to work on. So he had a crazy PC setup. And he used to take all the games like Wolfenstein 3D and Doom and put them on 3.5-inch floppies and send them to me and my dad, and we would love playing them on our PC. It was great. I was like, that's my earliest memories of PC games, actually.
Do you guys remember Jazz the Jackrabbit? I used to like that game.
Nope. I did play Roger Rabbit, though, the adventure game. That was actually a really good adventure game. The Who Framed Roger Rabbit adventure game.
Doesn't remember
this. Okay, there was just this badass bunny on the PC. I just remember it was around that era. I don't know. It was a cool game. I liked it.
Nice. So. All right. Well, that's cool reminiscing about Doom, and I'm really pumped for that. I can't believe it's so soon, May 13th. That's really, really soon, right around the corner. That's too bad it's not going to be out before Land Syndicate. That would be an awesome game to play on Land. That would be, oh my god. Well, I'm sure we're going to play the old Doom though.
Yeah, the old Doom and a lot of other
GoldenEye Source
and games.
we were just the other night, we were Pistol, Logan, myself, and I think Rooster didn't come on, but we were all playing GoldenEye Source. It was a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to playing some good games on Land, some Doom and stuff too. But so next story we had up was about Valve saying that they want their VR to be able to run games on graphics from 2012, like a GTX 680.
Like one of these. I think this is the main
right
focus.
There it is.
7970, baby. That's like
the 7970. It's on the same par. That was a beast of a
no.
car
It's nowadays it's a lot better than a 680. I think, because I recently got done testing the GTX 660, and then that was the competitor, kind of like to the 7870, wasn't it?
Do you have a 680 on hand?
I don't have a 680 on hand, but I'm going to get a 780, and I'm going to start testing it against my old benchmarks, because I think what's going on with the 780 and the Kepler series is that I don't think that Nvidia is purposely nerfing it in their driver updates, but what I think they're doing is they're just not caring about it in future driver updates for supported games. They're just like, okay, we're just going to focus on Maxwell, and that's it. And so what you're seeing is the big discrepancy between Maxwell and Kepler. I think that's what's going on with my gut instinct, though I can't say that until I get a 780 in and fully test it and cross-reference it with my archived benchmarks.
Well, maybe I'll grab one of those. I can grab one of those 780s. I can lend it over to you.
But I will say, but what I
the
will
insurance and the shipping to Japan.
Okay, yeah, sure, okay. If you got a 780 on hand, I'd love that, man.
Well, the one for my friend's build, but he doesn't touch it. I bet if I took out the second one, he wouldn't even know.
Okay, yeah, just but the thing is, like, I'm noticing
routine maintenance.
But I'm noticing the AMD cards, they're performing really well. Like the old school AMD cards, like even the 5850s, the 6970s, and all those cards, they're performing really, really good. And it's kind of like it's almost a shock to me how good they're performing even to this date. So I'm a real big believer in the value out of the you can get the value that you can get out of the old school AMD cards. And so this is I like this article because I think Valve would want their card VR to run on some of these cards because they're still really powerful to this date, especially the 7970. So
yeah, when the 390X came out, we did the benchmark testing and stuff like that for it, and that was one of the things that was kind of a double-edged sword because I noticed the same thing because I was like, well, the 390X should not be this much faster than the 290X because I just pulled our archive benchmarks from the 290X when it came out, and I was like, So I actually pulled the 290X that we had, the same 290X that we had when we did the testing, and retested it, and it was more than 10% faster in the in the year, 12 months or 16 months or whatever it was. That we got gains. And so I was like, well, the 390X is not really that much faster than a 290X. It's all the driver gains that you're getting.
Yeah, so I think AMD, I guess they're making good driver gains and they're passing that on to their previous cards as well. So that's a good thing.
I'd like to see. I was asking you about if you had a 680 because I would like to see like a retro showdown again of the 680 versus the 7970 because that was such a classic matchup back then. And when I did that 780 benchmark video recently, I was thinking I would like to do something like that where you revisit like an old showdown thing like that.
It would be, but the problem is like they want literally like $250 for a 680 here, and I'm like, I got this for like $100. I got this for $130. $130.
Get two of those and throw them in cross.
Yeah. And like even for a 780, they want like the cheapest I can see one on the internet here for is like $280. I'm like come on, So
just real quick, I wanted to say thanks real quick. We had a couple donations in the chat from Matthew and Enigmatistic. Sent over some donations. Said thanks so much for the great content and TGW for the win. Thank you so much, guys, for the support. Really appreciate that.
Awesome.
Yep. So you want to get on to the next one, or do you have anything else you wanted to add on this one, the VR, before we go on?
No.
No?
Fallout 4 survival mode expected in Steam beta next week. Do you want to talk about this?
Yeah. So they had revealed some information last month about the new survival mode they're going to be adding into the game, which is essentially going to be a harder difficulty on Fallout 4, which personally I'm looking forward to. I mean, you can already technically pretty much just do this with a mod. I mean, you could do this with a mod or just choose not to fast travel because that's what it does. It gets rid of things like fast traveling. You have to find a bed in order to be able to sleep, things like that. And it's going to be hitting the beta next week. So if you want to get it, you just right-click the game and enable the beta mode, and then you could try it out. I mean, it sounds like fun, but when I initially heard this, I thought, oh my god, they're adding in an online survival horde mode, and I got really excited. So I was disappointed to find out that it was not an online zombie mode that I could play with friends.
Yeah.
So
Wendell, do you play much of the latest releases, or you're like too busy with the tech nowadays, or?
Yeah, I definitely don't have as much time for games as I used to. I did put in enough time. I didn't actually quite finish Fallout 4. I got far enough to where I had to choose a faction, and it's like, oh, this is a deeply unsatisfying choice.
Did you get to the Institute yet?
Yes.
You got to the Institute and found out like the big thing. That's like the middle point of the game, I think, or like 2/3 of the way through the game.
I'm to the point
where I got to.
The Brotherhood of Steel has the giant operational robot, and spoilers, has the giant operational robot, and everybody is friendly with me. Although I have had to kill an awful lot of synths. I instantly thought, as soon as I saw what the Brotherhood was all about, and I met the guy who was like, I was like, this is like basically Buzz Lightyear. I was like, this guy's a pussy, and I killed every single one of them. As soon as I heard what the Brother of Steel stood for, I was like, nah, these are not the guys for me. I'm pretty much, I stuck with the Minutemen from the beginning, and I'm also kind of liking the Railroad, and
I don't. I'm really skeptical about the Institute, but I want to see where it goes, so I'm exploring that path as well.
I definitely don't think the survival mode would be for me. I think I would have already just thrown my keyboard across the room
Well,
and
I'll tell you I could definitely see where you're coming from in that because I'm playing it on just I think it's hard. I don't think it's the hardest one, but it's hard. And the part where you actually have to go through like the irradiated area to go meet this like green guy off in the distance, and you have to wear the hazmat suit the whole way out there. That was absolutely brutal. That was because I was way too under leveled. Like I was just rushing through the main story quests, and I tried going out there at like level 10, and I was just getting my ass handed to me. But,
I learned a long time ago in Fallout games to put everything into sneak, and so that didn't. That didn't
you just
bother
walk
me.
around with you just walk around everywhere sneak.
Yeah. But
Oh my god.
I can't imagine playing the game without fast reload and fast save because what's
Yeah.
happens sometimes is like you sneak in somewhere without actually killing everything that moves, and then you accidentally do something, and then there's like 50 people on top of you, and then you're gonna die.
Or,
Yeah.
or especially in Fallout 4, the random Molotovs or grenades that would one hit kill you, or just
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. It's so like you're doing so well, but you're just like I haven't hit F5 in a while, but I'm kicking ass. I don't have to press F5. Then one grenade and boom. That's man, I gotta start the whole damn place over again.
Reminds me of World
That
of
is Fallout 4 in a
Warcraft.
nutshell.
Like World of Warcraft when you're in a raid and you're trying to sneak past a guy and then he notices you and then like the whole fucking dungeon just comes down on you. Yeah, it's kind of like that quick restore would be good.
All right, so let's breeze on to the next topic because we are kind of getting close on time here. I don't know if you have to go like now, Wendell, or are you able to hang till the end of topics or what? Because you're saying 6:30.
Yeah, I could probably hang around a little bit longer, but I'll have to go before too long.
right.
After this, I'm gonna probably about 7:30. I'll be streaming Factorio with some friends, but that's
All right, we'll try to see if we can blow through the rest of these topics in about like 10, 15 minutes. We might not. You have work today too, right, Brian?
Yeah, I've got
Yeah,
work. I will
he's
actually
got work.
technically. I mean, the students aren't here anymore, so I'm technically on holidays. So
We'll start breezing through some of these topics. So this one's a pretty quick one. MSI did launch a new GTX 950 2 GB card. A little bit late in the cycle, but it does have a lower TDP, 75 watts. So pretty interesting release, but kind of late in the cycle. I can't see anyone have been waiting around for these unless you're doing a really small form factor that you really need that low TDP. Then maybe yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's it. That's right. I think MSI are just sort of just making a new product, refreshing it. I mean, maybe that's a hint that there's not really much coming out in the next few months on the low end side of things. So maybe they're just kind of spicing it up with the 950 with no six pin. That's just pretty good.
I was just gonna say the single cooler version of it. I think actually that's pretty nice. I could see putting that in an HTPC or something like that. That's actually pretty decent.
Yeah. Well, I like the power consumption figures. That's pretty good. So
Hey, good looking cooler too.
Yeah. So that's a pretty nice card if you want to sort of spice things up on your HTPC, or if you got an old Dell or something with an i5 2500 in there, just pop one of these in and you get yourself a gaming PC now.
Yeah,
So-
this the next thing we had was a little bit more interesting. It was about the Apple unveiling their 29 armed robot designed to disassemble iPhones. I thought that this was a pretty interesting story. I think I'll let you take this one, Wendell, if you don't mind taking the lead on this one.
Yeah, so Apple, it turns out that there's so many iPhones and there's such a pain in the ass to properly recycle. The whole point of this robot is that it takes the phone apart to separate, because there's aluminum, there's platinum, there's gold, there's all this stuff in the battery. And so this robot, basically, you feed it an iPhone and it will break the iPhone down into the components that contain the different kinds of things. And so the aluminum case, of course, will be immediately recycled. The battery will, of course, be immediately recycled. The camera and some other circuit boards are extracted so that their earth minerals can be extracted. It's hard for me the video shows relatively recent iPhones. It's hard for me to imagine anything older than like an iPhone 4S that would really need this kind of a treatment. I mean, yeah, maybe replace the battery, but in the developing world, even iPhone 4S is not really that awful. And so it's like, we're going to disassemble this old iPhone 6. And it's like, but
Well, who's doing the disassembly now? or is that not even happening? Is that not even a thing?
I don't think that really happens. This sort of is the other thing, is that Apple has sort of got to close the loop on the actual recycling. So I don't know if recycling centers would then pay Apple to do this. But so like when you sell your phone on Gazelle, if you guys aren't familiar, Gazelle.com is a great place to sell your old phones and old electronics in general and get a reasonable-ish price for it. So most of the time, if you send something, you know, as old as like an iPhone 4S, they'll just send it like they'll make sure the battery's okay. They might replace the battery and then send it on out to developing countries or send it on out elsewhere. If they have to recycle it to get the rare earth minerals out of it, there's really not a lot of money in that unless you can do it really quickly. And so I think Apple is either going to sell the robots to recycling companies, or they're going to do like the Gazelle thing and tell recycling companies, "Hey, send us a bunch of your phones, and we'll recycle and take all this stuff out of it, and it'll be completely fine." This doesn't mean that the iPhone is completely 100% recyclable, but it is sort of interesting.
Well, I was wondering why they don't just bring something like this to replace the human element of the assembly of the iPhones in the Apple factories over in China.
Well,
Use it for that.
a lot of it really is automatable. You know, it's funny, but Google did this with Motorola before they sold off Motorola for the Android line. So, like the Moto X's were produced on production lines that had been previously staffed by 10 times as many people. They took a facility in Texas that had thousands of employees and made it to where the whole facility could be run by hundreds of employees. And it was all this exact same kind of robotic automation. I'm not sure the extent that Apple has done robotic automation, but that would be cheaper than employing people at Foxconn. And that may be something that Foxconn's worried about. I don't know.
Well, I mean, given the the stories about the employee treatment and everything over there, anyway, would it necessarily even be a bad thing if they were to actually bring in something like this? It would actually might help out some people, or saves people from having to work for Apple. But they might be, then they're out of a job. But at the same rate, you're saving them from almost torture.
Yeah, it definitely goes to show you how much and to what extent things can be automated these days with robots. So,
yeah.
It's just they got the slow-mo, the dropping of the case on slow-mo. I love it. But I was wondering, what would you need to recycle some of those rare earth minerals you're talking about? What would be the cheapest way? Because I know over here, like I'm just going to talk about, there's some real big bargains. Like you go around to some of these old junk stores, you know, there's some gold. There's gold.
I was listening to chat.
Yeah, but back in the day, they used to put a lot of gold into the electronics, and now you look at the price of gold, right? If you can start recycling some of that gold, man, you can get rich off just recycling old junk.
Well, it turns out, okay, so in the 80s, we didn't really know how to properly coat things with gold, but we knew that we could coat things with gold and it would work better. And so, like, the IBM PC has quite a lot of gold in it. Relatively speaking, because we hadn't figured out the whole plating process. But now, the gold plating process, we can actually control how many atoms of gold are deposited onto the contacts. Yeah. So a modern, like anything pretty much since the early 90s, uses a vanishingly small amount of gold, except for in some very special edge cases, which is why the camera module, I think, contains the most gold and platinum because of the way that it needs to operate. I'm sure can look it up and tell me what's wrong about that, because that's not the whole story, I think. But most of the gold and most of the really rare earth metals are going to be in that, and the battery. The batteries, lithium. Since the 90s, lithium, like, just go plot a chart of commodities and look at the price of lithium since like 1992, and then wish you had invested in lithium in like 1990. But there's really, in modern computer recycling, you can get some money, but getting the gold out is insanely caustic. And so I know some people that are in the industry doing it sort of the old school way, and it involves things like mercury and all sorts of caustic chemicals, and like chemically extracting the gold and then reconstituting it. And it's the recycling process is actually insanely bad for the environment. So
okay. No, just around my area, like there's a lot of old junk stores that they've got like a lot of 80s, 70s electronics, like a lot of that real old stuff. And
that
it's kind of
really
like,
good.
Yeah, and you see it goes through your head, you're like, okay.
There is a friend of mine got an old Wang mainframe with some terminals, and it was originally like $250,000, and he was able to extract about $5,000 of gold from it. But that was like,
Wow.
circa 1983, and so we're talking like two fridge-sized racks plus a bunch of other extra equipment, and apparently like Wang or whoever did it right back then, and so it was like, wow, there's quite several ounces of gold in all this equipment.
Yeah. That's $5,000. So it's not a bad payday.
Yeah. We actually got another Apple story up next after this one's about the Google's making a keyboard for the iPhone, which I thought was pretty interesting actually, that they're doing a third-party platform keyboard for the iPhone, and they're actually saying here that it's designed to make users use Google more. So that's pretty interesting. I'm wondering how Apple feels about it.
I think it's probably got a keylogger stored somewhere in the root of the keyboard. And
Well, the interesting thing about this is not the keyboard. It's that only until recently, like the last year or so, Apple opened up the platform to even be able to do a custom keyboard. Because previously, Apple was like, no, this is our ecosystem. You cannot have a custom keyboard. And so that's one of the reasons that, Swipe, the keyboard, was not really available on Apple devices for the longest time, because no custom keyboard.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd never seen anything like this. So they started doing this like about a year ago, you said?
I think it was about a year ago that they finally opened up to allow developers to do custom keyboards and things like that. It might have been a little over a year, might have been a little less than a year, but Apple, up until that point, it was just completely not allowed. And so Android users had Swift for like 2 or 3 years, and then Apple was like, fine, we'll allow third-party keyboards.
It's funny. I used to use like iPhones and iPods and stuff. There's a store near me called Five Below. It was kind of like a dollar store, but everything was $5 and below. And I used to go there all the time because they had loads of just like off-brand, like Chinese, like Apple knockoff stuff that was performed exactly the same. So I was just imagining if they would probably have stuff like this. It's like they just sold everything. I was just like wondering. I was like, how do they even get away with this? Because I thought a lot of it was proprietary things that they were selling, like the charging cables, the docking stations, all that stuff. Kind of surprised. Anyway, next thing we had up was about Displayport 1.4 compression codec cannot be truly visually lost. Like this seems a little bit far off anyway, but they're talking about 1.4 being capable of 8K 60 hertz HDR video.
Well, what I was looking at here was I wasn't even focusing on that. I was just looking at I got a big smile when I saw 4K 120 hertz.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, as someone that just transitioned to 4K and that had to dial down to 60 hertz, I definitely want it.
Yeah. So what they're saying is that it doesn't matter how you slice it, they just can't fit an 8K 60 hertz signal through the Display 1.4 standard. So, like
It's still a little bit far off anyway. And anyone's even going to be ready for 8K. We're barely even here for 4K. I think I'll be pretty happy if we can get a good 4K at 120 hertz or 144 hertz.
Yeah, like I really think 4K is here for the next 10 years or so. Like that's going to be a pretty broad assumption, but full HD 1080p, that was in for a long time, like a real long time. I mean, going from 4K to 8K, that's a huge jump. Like, I just don't really see it happening.
I couldn't even imagine how big the screen would have to be for desktop use on an 8K to actually have it be usable.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, 4K is absolutely fine. I mean, 120 hertz as well. Display standard, Displayport standard 1.4 is fine with me. I got no complaints whatsoever here. So, maybe for visual effects people, 8K is going to be good.
You're happy with your 60 hertz though, right? You don't. Do you care too much about upgrading to 120 on the 4K?
No.
No, not too much.
Not too much. I mean, this obviously is going to affect people in the professional scene more than anything, right? Because they're always going to constantly demand more pixels. But then again, I guess they're going to try and want that 60 hertz as well, right? So, yeah, this is mainly for the professionals in the video industry.
Well, it's something that's at the forefront now for me a little bit more because before I had only just been using I had the big 40-inch 4K screen sitting here next to me, the A409U that I just basically been using to like run our podcast and stuff, which was great. But now I got a 27-inch 4K, and I thought that was going to be way too tiny, but my eyes have actually gotten adjusted to it at just normal Windows scaling, and it's actually not that bad.
That's I tried. I couldn't do it. 32 inches and then after that, my eyes were like, no, suck.
I'm getting. That's what I'm getting. I'm getting next week. I'm getting a 32-inch one to try out. I have a feeling that will probably be perfect. But my eyes have adjusted to this enough now where it's like I could use this every day, without a problem. There's the only time where sometimes it's a problem is when I'm trying to get my mouse cursor on a certain line, like if I'm editing and I need to drag something, I just can't get it to catch on the corner because it's so small and I'm trying to hit it. So sometimes I got to zoom in on things, but for the most part, reading and everything, it's okay.
I love 4K, so I've gotten used to it.
I love it. Yeah, the screen real estate is I can't go back from the screen real estate. It just can't happen.
Yeah, so do we want to talk about Dark Souls 3?
Yeah, Dark Souls 3. The system requirements got posted through a Japanese website, looking like on the recommended side. Well, why don't you take this away, Brian? Because it looks like the original link was in Japanese.
Yeah, well, it's saying like it's
and you
can
speak. You're the only one can speak Japanese here that I know of.
it's saying like you can need Windows 10, 64-bit, everything that you've read before, right? So, I mean, DirectX 11. Graphics card.
Recommended 9. Okay, yeah. I can read some of this here. Yeah. Recommended 970 or 750 Ti minimum.
Sound or DirectX 11 or better.
That's not,
sound card. DirectX 11 sound. I don't know.
Anyway, a 970 sounds a little bit high just based on the past Dark Souls game, and they've always had not the best ports. Like the second one was better than the first one, but if they're going to have the graphics like this is going to be on par with something like Bloodborne, which was console exclusive. Then I could see them justifying having a 970 recommended, but I just hope the game is optimized because seeing that 970 there, sitting there, that's already worrying me that this game is maybe not going to be the best port because they just have a bad track record to begin with. So I'm afraid it's going to run like turd.
So basically all they're saying is like Nvidia GTX 970 or something similar. So that's what they're saying with the recommended specs for the minimum system requirements. You've got a 750 Ti. Or an ATI 7870, or
It's also worth noting. I just saw that on here that everything is all Nvidia on here. So is this GameWorks title not going to be AMD optimized type thing again? Possibly.
I think that's what it's looking like. Yeah. So you need 20 gigabytes or more storage space as well, both for recommended and minimum specs.
We talk about this all the time. I hate seeing that. Whenever we see like a game specs and we just see an Nvidia logo on it, it just seems like a bad sign.
I'm not too sure what they're talking about with the sound as well. Like DirectX 11 better sound card? Like what?
They always list the sound card. The sound card usually listed like DX9 or up.
Yeah, but usually you just got a sound card through the drivers, right? And then there's channels.
Yeah, they always list that stuff. I never worry about it. I just play the games, but it's good for people that want to know if they could run Dark Souls 3. There's a lot of Dark Souls fans. I know it's minimum, at least they're saying 750 Ti. I'll be doing a performance review on this one when it launches, so keep an eye out for that. Hopefully it's optimized. On the CPU side, they did mention AMD here, but on the GPU for the minimum, but not the recommended. Or is that in the recommended they didn't put an AMD? It just says equivalent. Is that what that's?
Yeah, that's what they've said. Yeah. So
right,
I mean,
there's Japanese says equivalent.
See, I've noticed in Japan there's this big push with Nvidia. Like it's massive. I'd say it's more than anywhere else in the world. Actually, like I went to Akihabara and that's the big electric city, and I just could not find an AMD graphics card. Like it was hard. Like I had to specifically go out of my way to try and find one. And so in Japan, especially, that's why I think the secondhand graphics cards here as well, all the Nvidia cards are inflated. Because all people want is Nvidia graphics cards here. They don't care. I think that's something I've taken just from being observant over the last few months, especially when I've went to the city a few times. And with this marketing, right? You want an Nvidia graphics card or something similar. Like you got to list it. They should be listing an AMD graphics card.
If you believe the marketing, but I don't think it's going to be like that for long. As soon as we start seeing more DirectX 12 titles rolling in, I think that's going to shift quite dramatically.
Honestly, it's a bit of bullshit because this is why AMD loses sales now, like with this kind of marketing, And I mean, the average consumer.
That's the whole idea of GameWorks. That's what they've been doing is marketing.
The average consumer is just going to look at that and go, "Oh, I need an Nvidia graphics card." Yeah. I'm getting a new computer. I want an Nvidia graphics card in there, and that's that's all that's going to happen. So. Yeah,
we'll see. Well, we'll see what happens. You can only time will tell. But it usually is a bad sign. We see those Nvidia badges on there. I hate seeing that.
So anyway, we got Hitman's online implementation is
Oh
hurting
no,
the game.
we had skimped that one out. I didn't have enough time
Oh,
to
yeah. We gotta
to look
skim
at that
through
topic,
this.
and we are running down on time. So
Yeah.
we do have to actually really go. So if you do
Yeah.
have any quick questions, we want to fire them in the chat real quick. We got to go in like 5 minutes, like literally. So
Yeah.
fire them in
Yeah.
the chat here. Just real quick though, while you are asking the questions, I'll just mention this to you guys. So basically, there's some modders at work here. Basically, what Witcher 3 would look like if you play it in first person. Some of it looks pretty interesting. I watched the actual video of it. If you watch it, the horseback riding I thought looked a bit awkward. It seemed like he was sitting way too high on the horse. Like you could tell that the character models where the eyes are sitting were never made to be in first person. So it was a little bit out of place. But
Yeah, it's still got a bit of work to do, but I think it does look pretty promising. So I like that. And
Yeah.
I would like to play Witcher 3 in first person.
I would as well.
Make me play it.
I would as well. If they could get it on par to perform like a Skyrim game for the combat and everything, then I'd be all over it. But with the amount of rolling in the Witcher games, I feel like I might get a little bit nauseous in first person rolling around. You roll a hell of a lot in The Witcher. I would be afraid to play that in VR.
Yeah.
You
All
play
right,
much-
so sorry.
Did we get any questions?
Well, that's what I was just going to say with Wendell. So thanks for coming on the show, man. Like, I really
No problem.
appreciate it. That
man.
was awesome. So it's great to like the Xeon stuff and all that. That really, yeah. That's the kind of stuff that I wanted to pick your brain for. So
Well, and with basically the end of the TikTok cadence, it means that everybody should be able to get a lot more miles out of their existing hardware. Most of I think most of the innovation the next 5 years is going to be in mobile. Mobile is going to try to catch up to desktop for graphics and raw performance. I think. I don't know how close they'll get. I mean, 10 cores in a laptop. Okay.
yeah. So I just think it's something awesome that's going on is that I think we're seeing a lot of people shift to Xeons, not just for workstation, but a lot of people like to be on the Xeon. It's something new because I think what we're seeing on the enthusiast line of things is that we're just really getting charged too much for overclocking nowadays. And like it's not just on the license on the motherboard, but also on the license on the CPU, the K, right? And so I think there's this shift towards Xeons, and having more information on that's also always a good thing. So thanks for.
It's funny you say that because the Intel has been very careful with the pricing around the X99. When the 1600 series Xeon, as a single socket version, was initially launched, the 6-core version was $100 cheaper than the was it the 5820? I can't remember the model number. It was the 6-core X99. It was the middle of the road that launched at like 600 or 650. The Xeon version of that was $100 less. And then somebody was like, "Hey, wait a minute! I could just slam that in the X99 and be fine." And Intel was like, "Oops."
Yeah.
That's $100 more.
You can't do that. We need that $100. That's just that's straight up. So,
All right, so we had a few quick questions. Just real quick, we'll just take a couple. Someone wanted to know Wendell's favorite game of 2015, 2016. I know you said you don't play a lot of games, but someone wanted to know.
Not a lot. I really enjoy Factorio. I'm going to go play that with some friends at about 7:30. You can. That'll be on YouTube / Beer Games Beer.
Yeah.
And it's addictive. It's insanely addictive. I mean, it's not really a super complicated game. I put a lot of.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's fine.
No. Keep going. I'm sorry. It was just the delay. I didn't hear that you were keep going.
Oh no. Fallout 4. Put a lot of hours into Fallout 4 last year. I had a lot of fun. The dialogue was a little disappointing and some other things. Overall, it's a pretty good game. Not as good as Fallout 3, especially with the mods. I put a lot of time into Skyrim. I'm trying to think. I play some Fistful of Frags. That's a lot of fun, but that's sort of
I've been playing that. That game is extremely frustrating, and every time I play it, I want to. This door right here has almost got several holes put through it by my fist from that game. It's insanely difficult, and just it's partially broken, but it's like it's okay because it's broken for everyone in the same way. So it kind of works, and you're willing to forgive it because it's like I don't know, it's fun because it's a Western. It's decent. It's a decent game. It's on Source.
When DayZ first came out, I think that's probably the most fun that I've had with a game in a really long time. So I have really fond memories of DayZ before it was like turned crazy. with all the bugs. It's like, oh, I'll crouch here. Oh, I've broken my leg.
We got asked, do you think Nvidia cards will favor, or Vulkan will favor Nvidia cards more than DX12 cards favor AMD? That's a pretty good question. Depends on how the API really works with the game, yeah?
Yeah, it's going to come down to the API, and it's going to come down to the specifics of the implementation in the game. AMD is stacking the deck with more performant hardware so far, but some of the numbers from the unreleased Nvidia stuff, I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. That's what we were saying before in the past. This kind of early development stage gives Nvidia a lot of time anyway to get their next gen cards out to optimize for DX12, for Vulkan, and so it's I don't know, the way the industry moves. So you kind of can't put all. I don't know. I think AMD they've really got to get power efficiency on top of their priorities, I think, going forward anyway, regardless of what their architecture is currently about. So,
all right, well, we're getting late on time here. I know Wendell's got to go, and you got to get to work and everything like that. So we got a little bit over than we usually do anyway. Sorry about that, but I'm sure everyone watching appreciated it. We don't have to apologize to them, but sorry to Wendell for his schedule if we messed anything up. But thanks again for coming out, man. It was really awesome to meet you. See you at Land Syndicate.
Yep, I'll be there.
Fun. Yep.
See you guys.
Yep, we'll see you guys next week, same time. Ta-da.